Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say today we have Carole with us, who's a business coach, a content creator, and a freelance travel marketer. Carole, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today, Tom.
You're very welcome, Carole. Carole, we start the show the same as always. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. My early career was in travel and travel technology. And some years back then, I decided to make a change. And that was a change of career into the area of executive coaching. However, in late 2008, we had the global financial crash. And I'd only been coaching for about a year at that time. And literally, it was like an off switch. There were no clients, no emails, no phone calls. People were losing their jobs. And so budgets for staff development and training was cut. Ever the optimist, I thought that things would actually, I thought maybe a few months, maybe things would start to change. And at the time, I was doing a 3-year part-time course in counseling, which I was going to add into my coaching work. So I thought, well, I'll focus on that. And I was also very interested in the psychology of happiness. I know you're probably going to wonder about that, but I started doing kind of mail shots to my very small database at that time. And I would send out topics about something around happiness. So I was sort of immersing myself, keeping myself busy, and also living off my savings at that time. However, as the months went on, I began to realize, like a lot of us, that this recession was here to stay and it wasn't going anywhere fast. And I thought, okay, I better relook at my situation. And I started to, go out, talk to people, see if I could get rehired. And, in the middle of a recession, that was bad. That wasn't very successful. And I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? And at the time, the only thing I could think about doing was I thought I've got to refocus on the coaching business. And how do I do that? How do I regrow my coaching business in the middle of a recession? And about that time, I'd heard that marketers in the US were looking at the growing numbers on Facebook and seeing it as a potential new medium to cost effectively market and promote their businesses. And again, marketing budgets had been slashed pretty much globally as well. And I thought, I'm going to learn a little bit about this. I need to know more about this if I want to try and rebuild my business. And so I went off and I sourced webinars and trainings and all kinds of stuff, and all of it from the States. At that time in Ireland, I don't know if there was any training in Ireland, but certainly everything I did was via webinars and trainings, as I say, at night. Every night I was on different webinars, trying to learn about social media, how I could use it. And as I was learning, I started to share it because I had family and friends who were also very badly affected by the recession at the time. And so I'd be talking to them about using LinkedIn for B2B sort of networking and talking to them about the B2C side of things using Facebook. And so I started creating Facebook pages, the very early days, creating Facebook pages, creating content for them, talking to them about what their audience wanted, and doing that for them until such time as they felt that they could do it themselves. From the training that I was getting, I learned that if you had a static website, which I did at the time, you needed to be blogging. So I started blogging. And I was blogging about different topics, but a lot of that would have been, again, tips to businesses about, why you should be on social media, what the benefits of that would be, the opportunities, and then going deeper into maybe a specific topic like around Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it might be. From that, I started doing, can't really remember timelines so much, but I started doing then seminars around Dublin. And that might have been in a room above a pub and maybe over a 3-week period. And I do 1 week maybe about the something specific, like it might have been LinkedIn or one of the social sites, or another one it would have been looking again at the opportunities and the benefits and also the legal aspect for business owners, social media policies for their employees, that all of that kind of stuff. From the blogging, which I was doing, I got an invite to guest blog for a London-based social media company who are no longer around, it has to be said, and also for an Irish magazine. I did a kind of guest contributor with them for about 2 years, and that was with my counselling hat on, so it was non-social media as such. While all of that was going on, somewhere in the mix about 2010, I was at a meeting and we were asked, does anyone know anything about social media? Because this organization, which has 57 outlets or thereabouts, I think it was, around the country, they want to try and see how they can use it. And I sent them in an email, and the management team asked me to come in and present. And and then they asked me if I would come to their annual kind of conference and do a presentation on it again, which I did. And the next thing is they actually offered me a contract. And I'll be very honest with you, it was a turning point for me, because up to that point, I had never even considered the idea that somebody would pay me to actually help them with social media. My focus had always been about going back to executive coaching or going back there. And so at that time, I realized I'm not getting anything on the executive coaching side of things. And here's a potential to actually earn money, finally, doing the social media side of things. So I rebranded myself, if you like, as the social media coach. And from there, I went on. I did a 4-year stint with SkillNet Ireland. So I was doing training up and down the country. I spoke at a number of conferences over time, and again on various different content around social media, why you should use it, various different stuff. And I suppose then about 2015, I was offered, I kind of took my foot off the gas with the training so much, and I got a contract for as a marketing and PR manager for an international airline. I still had other clients, so I was still creating content for the clients. But I did that, for about 5 years. And at the moment now, I'm more focusing back on the coaching and the content creation. So, yeah, that's me.
That's fantastic. And running through your career, you've been on the forefront of so many digital tech enhancements, the movement of social media. Yeah, just by your time frame, you're at the very forefront of all of that, and you are one of the original content creators, I suppose, in Ireland. So it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
So all in all, Carole, what would you see as your main strength today as a marketer, a digital marketer, and that particular area?
Okay, well, I kind of feel that again, have been doing it for a long time, but I understand business, and you know what? Yeah, it's really interesting, really, when you're working with it, and I love doing it when you're working with a business owner or a team or whatever. Again, when we're talking about social media, I have my strengths, which were at one time all about being very immersed in the various different platforms. I have moved away from that, and now it's very much at when I'm working with a company, it's like looking at where do you want to be, and so the kind of things that I do now really focus on sort of the whole company, with the looking at the goals that they have, where they want to be, and looking at where they are now and how do we move them to that space. So really, part of that, I mean, what I can do is I do offer clients content creation and distribution, so I can do all of that kind of stuff. I do blog writing. I do website management. But the other thing I do as well is I do an audit. It's something I love doing it, actually, because what it does is, for a company, they'll often go, well, we want to do this and we're doing that, whatever. And I'll go, well, okay, let's start with doing an audit. How do you look online? And that would be looking at the company and saying, okay, how do you look to a new prospect, depending on who your new client is or who you're targeting. So I'll look at things like, customer reviews. I'll look at how they look on their various different social platforms. I'll look at their website, look at the whole thing, look at the customers, or sorry, not the customers, but the competitors. It's an interesting thing that I always ask a client when you're actually, when I start working with them is how do you feel you measure up against your competitors, or what is it about your competitors that they're doing online or otherwise that you think that you could maybe emulate in some ways. And the amount of times I get, well, we're so busy, we really don't know what our competitors are doing. So so one of the areas that I work in is actually going in, looking at how they look as a company online and measure them up against their competitors and go back to them with that. And that gives us a kind of a starting point to see where they need to go or what we need to do next. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm doing really. So it's content creation, email marketing, um, website management, and as I say, the audits. That's kind of the stuff that I'm doing.
Brilliant, brilliant. And to kind of hone in on that a little bit more, is there any particular softwares or setups that you use as go-tos to prepare your audit or to
Well, for
work
the
in
audit, really, again, obviously there's various different tools that I look at to look at sort of I mean, I'll go in and I'll to the various different sites, but there's different things like social mention and SEMrush and stuff like that that you can actually go in to look at, what people are saying, what kind of keywords they're using that seem to be working for them. But a lot of it as well is, I might even go in and look at their employee profiles on LinkedIn, just to see if there's a cohesive message across the various different platforms that they have. Some of it is less about tools and more about common sense, and that might sound, given the kind of conversation that we're having, it might seem a bit odd, but sometimes you just need to sit back and actually look at an organization and just see how they look without getting involved in various different tools, and then go in using the tools to see if it backs up to what you actually see at the outset. So yeah, there's obviously, again, there's things like Likealizer, been around for donkey's years, looking, and it'll do an in-depth analysis of your Facebook page. So there are different tools out there, lots of them, to actually just analyze various different platforms that I'll use in those audits.
Brilliant. And you mentioned you do a lot of work in the travel industry. Do you
Yeah, a lot of
see
my
any,
clients, yeah.
yeah, do you see any opportunities in the travel industry at the moment? Something that, you know, you're thinking of capitalizing on, or something you can give to some of our listeners in a way to approach things at the moment?
Well, I think, again, it sort of depends on which area you are in travel, because I've worked with travel and in aviation. They're somewhat different, really, But again, when it comes to travel as well, we do know the stats are out there. We know that when it comes to somebody thinking about going on a holiday, I think it's something, if I think I'm going to say up around about 60%, but a lot of people will go to their social sites for inspiration as to where they're going to travel. And that's where they'll get their inspiration as to what they want to do. Now, what's happening a lot now with Meta, which is your Facebook and your Instagram, which travel companies tend to rely on, is now the focus is so very much on video. Because Meta is going right up against TikTok. So so from that, there needs to be a more emphasis on the video content. Now, I do know with travel companies, they're getting better at actually having that video content, but it's still kind of, there's still not enough of it, given we know, again, that certainly with Meta, that the emphasis is on the algorithm, such as it is, seems to be favoring video content. So they definitely need to be using more video content. I think over the years, certainly I've seen, the move from being hesitant about using social media, and we're long past those days, really. But it is about constantly getting the message out. But one of the things that I do see with businesses, not just travel, by the way, is sometimes the emphasis on to keep selling. Every post is a sell post. And I'm always saying, please don't do that. You need to mix up the content. You need to understand that you cannot keep somebody engaged by constantly selling at them. So it's that old kind of, we heard this back in the early days of social media, don't forget that what you need to be doing, aside from selling, is you need to be educating, you need to be inspiring, you need to be humoring people. And right now, we know certainly engagement levels for non-paid organic posts really is practically zero, if not zero. So you need to be engaging people and you need to be mixing up content. And again, you need to be aware of the trends and the shifts in the various different social networks. For example, like Meta at the moment going up against TikTok and wanting you to put up more video content.
Yeah, really well said. Really well said. And obviously, Instagram itself, to bring it back to Instagram for a second, it's always said that, the four pillars of a good Instagram account is either fitness, food, travel, or fashion. Obviously,
Yeah.
travel can kind of apply into all of them in some way with different cultural food and so on. But is there is there a blueprint that you have when you're producing content, or how do you come up with your concepts to produce engaging content,
Again, it
basically?
depends on the client, because I'll have clients maybe that are selling the sort of traditional holiday, to maybe the Portugals and the Spains and the Mediterranean type holiday, and then I've
Yeah,
got others that would be maybe more they're a little bit different. They could be selling kind of areas like Japan, Africa, and so you've got to think in terms of going back to the basics really on this, and it is about the audience. So what are you selling, and who is the audience for this? So when it comes to blueprints, I suppose for me it's always looking at who is this particular company targeting. So it goes back to that really, and that kind of helps me. So really when it comes to trying, and certainly on Instagram, again, as you know, I'm sure, again, it is now about video. So I'm now pushing back to the companies and asking them to get their suppliers to supply us with more video content. We need more video content to share on Instagram. But again, it is about having beautiful images. That still doesn't change. I was recently working with a company, and I sort of did a little bit of an audit of their. Well, I did an audit of their social sites, but looked at their Instagram and thought it's really not working. And the reason it wasn't working is because again, the images were bad. And when I say bad, you'd look at the image and wonder maybe what it was or what it represented, and that doesn't work. I mean, Instagram has always been very visual, and as you say, going back to one of the pillars of Instagram was about travel. Again, going back to what we're trying to do is we're trying to get someone who views that image to think, I want to be there, and to prompt them to maybe look at the text and maybe come further down that sales funnel, so they actually think I might get in touch with this travel agent or tour operator or whoever it might be. So we have to start with inspiring content that actually
yeah,
pulls people in, because if you're not doing that, then they're just moving on because someone else is going to do it better than you. So when it comes back to being the blueprint, it is about looking at good content, good video content, good images, and then working on the text around that and thinking about the audience. And again, I do add campaigns as well. So again, it's all about the how you target your audience as such.
really well said. And looking at yourself for a second, Carol, is there any areas you're looking to upskill yourself into, and why?
Yeah, do you know, I have been looking at TikTok, and TikTok took off in the pandemic, and initially we all thought it was for kids, a bit like we thought Facebook was back in the early days as well. And we all go through these evolutions as such. But I'm seeing some really good stuff on TikTok now. And I mean, from a business perspective, there's one lady in the UK that I follow, and she's a lawyer. And it's the funniest thing, because years ago, I did a little bit of work with some lawyers in the UK. and they were so way behind everybody else when it came to getting online. And now we're seeing lawyers getting online, doing these little TikTok videos with little snippets of like a Q&A, ask a question, and in this particular woman, it's about, if we separate, how will, things be divided up? So that might be the question. And she just does a really quick answer, and it's wonderful. And so for me and my clients, by the way, I need to sort of get more into TikTok. In all honesty, I did a TikTok video, but it was very travel orientated, about me as traveling, whatever. But I need to do it properly. So that is an area that I want to actually learn more about. I again, I suppose for me, really, I'm always kind of learning, and I'm always looking to see what's happening. But yeah, that's the immediate one that I want to sort of invest a little bit of time in and really get going in that, because I have clients now saying to me, "What about TikTok?" And I feel that's something I need to sort of delve into myself first, and so that then I can share that with my clients.
Completely. Yeah, I would really recommend it at the moment, Carol. The algorithm's so good for organic growth, and yeah, it doesn't. I think I always say on this show, it doesn't actually require you to be on camera, although it does help to have a kind of a spokesperson or a face for an account.
Yeah.
It doesn't. There's still several ways to go about it without using your face. So yeah, maybe we'll talk off air. But yeah, there's some really good areas to do, and you're so right with the lawyer side of things. It's amazing how many accountants and lawyers and those kind of professional profiles are blowing up because of TikTok. It's good to see. Carol, my next question is away from yourself. Is there anything in the digital industry overall that really excites you that might be coming up?
Well, I'm not sure about exciting me so much, but I certainly see the whole area of data privacy is really an area that we need to be very, very, very aware of. Not just from the impact it's having sort of with the various different, I mean, certainly with Meta, there's something kicking in, I think, about the 11th of July, some major changes really, and based around privacy. And that's because of the being brought into, because of EU GDPR requirements and so on. So that it's not necessarily exciting me, but I just think it's something we need to be very aware of. The consumer is now very, very wary about their data, how it's been used. And that will have an impact really on businesses, social media, and also it has been having an impact on certainly the wonderful days of Meta's, creating ads on Facebook, as it was so good. And now the impacts are really of the GDPR requirements are certainly changing things. So not necessarily so excited about that, but certainly very, very, very aware we're going to see a lot of changes around that. And we need to be, when it comes to companies and businesses, they need to be on it. They need to be very, very aware of what they're doing with data and make sure that they're not doing anything that could potentially have them brought into a scenario where they're being sued. That there's a financial impact to them. So yeah, that's something I think we need to be very conscious of going forward. Data and data privacy.
Really well said. Really well said. And Carol, we always end the show on the same question, which is if you could bottle up one personality trait that you have yourself that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
I would think really it's probably going to be the ability or the adaptability, the ability to move with change. And I'm going to just say and resilience in there. And I'm saying that because, over the years, I've certainly had knockbacks. And, what you've just got to, we all have them. And at the end of the day, what you got to do is when something kind of kicks you, you just got to dust yourself off, get up and, forge again, get up and face the day and go for it. So resilience and the ability to change, that is what I would bottle and share out without a doubt.
That's it, Carole. Thank you so much for being on the show. What a gorgeous interview. And yeah, I'm looking forward to everyone hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been really nice to be invited on the show. Thanks, Tom.